Hi everybody, welcome back to a Life Education podcast. We're here with Tom Otton, MD at Create Media Group. Have I got that right?
That's it.
Tom is in the sort of creative media game, as the name suggests, but also you're a avid health and fitness freak, you might say. You've done a lot of kind of long distance running. You're quite a motivational speaker as well. You've done a couple of TED Talks. One TED Talk?
One, yeah. I wouldn't classify as a motivational speaker, but there's a story that I've told a few times.
Yeah. So do you want to, let's start with that. Do you want to explain your background?
Yeah, I want to hear this story.
Sure. I mean, background, I've been living here in Dubai for the last 13 years. Set up the business about 8 years ago. But the story starts a little bit further back than that, 9 pushing 10 years now. So it's actually after I'd been in Dubai for just over a few years. I was diagnosed with cancer completely out of the blue. Felt something didn't feel right. Went to the doctor and got that diagnosis, which nobody ever wants to hear, and nobody ever thinks is going to happen to them. So it kind of knocked me off my feet for a little while. I didn't tell anybody about it. I had to process it myself internally before I could deal with anybody else. I mean, family were the first group, obviously, that you think about in that stage. And as an expat, you start to think, okay, well, how much can your family help you? How much do you actually need their help at this point? Should you deal with this yourself? So I went through all of this in a turmoil of, how do I deal with this? I then went in. I had a surgery, had the cancer removed, and the way that I processed it myself was that I thought, okay, well, I'll only tell my family about it if I then need to have follow-up treatment, et cetera, and I actually need their support. But if I don't need to go any further than where I am now, then I'm just going to keep that to myself. And I kept that to myself for about 9 years.
Oh wow! You didn't tell anyone?
No, the only person.
Really?
Yeah, the only person that knew was my
Tom?
flatmate at the time.
No way!
Yeah.
I'm so shocked about that. Wow.
It was just one of those things that once.
I have to say, we've known each other for a few years now.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I don't know if I heard it for the first time today or heard it recently. I didn't know that about you before. And it's the kind of thing where you would have been told amongst friends.
Yeah.
Just in passing.
Sorry, do you mind me asking what type of cancer did you have? Was surgery the only? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. So I basically had a growth in my groin, and it was malignant. They just went in. They had to cut it out. So I was quite lucky because it was caught quite soon.
So it didn't spread anywhere.
No, but they were. It was one of those situations where they looked at it, they cut it out, and they said, look, it's very close to your lymph nodes, and it can progress from here. So let's monitor it. So I was back in the hospital every 6 months. I was having the full dye treatment, going through all the scans, and that happened every 6 months for about 3 years. So I was still going through all this process. I'd have to have a half day in the hospital going through this process. But I kept all that to myself. I didn't tell anybody. And the reason that, like I said, the reason I didn't is because once I dealt with that myself, when do you bring that up? How do you bring that up? It's one of those things that, oh, by the way. I thought, okay, well, I'm only going to cause a huge amount of worry and pain to my family if I bring this up.
But what about sorry, I'm a woman, I'm different.
Yeah.
What about the relief that you get from actually being able to confide in other people? Did you not feel that?
The way that I process that, I can put quite a lot on myself, and I think that then goes into other areas of my life that we can get onto in terms of maybe some of the fitness side, but I can deal with quite a lot internally, and I didn't want to be putting any of that I felt it was almost like weak of me to be putting that onto my family by telling, let's say, my parents about this, because I knew that they can't help me. So unless I really, really need their help, unless I get to a point where, let's say, you've got to go in for chemo or something and it really progresses then, as long as it doesn't get to that stage and I don't need that sort of help, then I shouldn't be asking them to bear this burden when I should be dealing with this myself. So I know this is messed up, and I'm sure there's some psychologists will be like, it's A, B, and C right there. This is super clear. But for me, it was just that's what made sense. So that didn't come out then until I was asked to do a TED Talk, and it was about my journey of business and fitness and a journey about life, really. And I thought, well, I'm only actually going to tell half the story unless I tell the reason why I do all of the things that I do, and why I have the mindset of you're only here once, push yourself to your absolute limits. For me, it's about squeezing, it's about adventure, and that's what the TED Talk was about as well. It's about sort of squeezing as much as you can out of life, because when you get a setback and whatever that might be, and mine was this, others have had much worse than myself. But I think everyone that's gone through something like that has had that kind of aha, wake up moment of clarity where you think, oh wow, like this
I
is
have to do
really
something
fragile.
with my life.
Yeah, it's really fragile, and I need to realize that I can't just chill. I need to push boundaries in everything that I do. I need to give as much as I can, and it comes back and without it sound grandiose, because I don't mean this for myself, but I think for everybody, that the world should be a better place because you are here. And that's not going to happen if you just kind of go with the flow and chill. Like for me, that was my mindset of coming through something like that and thinking, okay, well, if I'm here for a reason. How am I going to benefit society? How am I going to benefit the people I work with? How am I going to benefit myself? And think at the end of my time that I've taken every opportunity. I've squeezed as much life out of this journey as I possibly could have. So that was kind of the mindset side of it.
Are you doing that now?
I like to think so. I mean,
well, I've been Insta-stalking you slightly, and I think you definitely are.
I enjoy. We played a bit of rugby together, which was great. And for a period, I got into the mindset that my skill set certainly limited my sort of how far I went in that space. It was super important to me at the time. Wanting to play for the local national team and this sort of thing was quite important. And that's progressed since finishing rugby to long distance running. So doing a lot of ultra marathons now, and I've done the Marathon des Sables a couple of times, and I've got a few bigger things coming up now, and trying to sort of got aspirations in that space for the next few years. And it's the same sort of mindset of I really enjoy getting into a space where it's your back's against the wall, and it's only you that can kind of get you out of it. So I find that on an ultra marathon, you get to a distance when you're like, wow, I'm in this. It's just me. I've got to get. It's super basic. Everything becomes super focused because everything is very, very basic on an ultra marathon. You've just got to move your body from here to there. There's no periphery. It doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. There's no other variable. It's just, and it's raw. There's no skill. It's just raw. How much do I want this? How much can I squeeze out of the situation that I'm in right now? And that's the thing that I crave, and that's why I do the longer and longer distances, because it's just getting to that point where you're like, you're spaced out. Your eyes are red. You haven't been to sleep for like 20 hours. You're just you're in such a state that I crave that environment. I know it's hard to describe.
Pressure.
I crave the environment of being there. And just seeing it, you're testing yourself, and that's what I really like.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can actually achieve when you get backed into a corner. What your body can do, what your mind can do, where you can go, and where you can take yourself.
Yeah.
It's the human body. Wow,
and
the mind.
Yeah,
the mind.
But the mind controlling the body to the extent that nobody really knows. It's incredible how much you can do if you just tell yourself that you can do it. Now, we spoke off air a minute ago about friends that have come back from horrendous injuries, and I mean the story that you said as well, coming back from such a setback that 9 out of 10 people would use that, I wouldn't say as an excuse for the rest of their life, but a reason for the rest of their life why they couldn't do A, B, and C, but they haven't even tried to do it. Like how many times have you heard, oh no, I can't run because I've got a sore knee. Why have you got a sore knee? Oh, when I was younger, A, B, and C happened, and they've never done anything to try and rectify it.
Yeah, well, we've talked about this a little bit, but one of the things that I was explaining quite often, we talked about it, that after you've had an accident or cancer or something like that, it's very easy to get stuck in this, I'm a victim, like, I can't do this.
That's so true.
And like for me, for a long time, it was okay to be that, because I was like, I couldn't get up and everything hurt, and I was in a wheelchair. I had to have loads of people help me. But once you're not getting out of that mindset, like after you've been in the mindset of 2 years of, oh, I'm disabled, getting out of that is a challenge in itself, because then it's like, well, actually, no, I'm able. And it really is, you have to flip and your mind entirely to like, I can do everything. I'm not stopped by anything, including my own mind and including my own injury. So I think that's quite interesting. And people don't really talk about that.
No.
They don't talk about getting stuck in the victimhood of what happens to you and your life. And that applies to everything and to everyone, really. Like having the loss of a parent or losing your job or any of those things. It's so easy for us to lay blame to other people and not to take responsibility and push forward, which I love.
I watched a video recently from Will Smith, actually, and I couldn't agree more with what you just said about it. It's a very brave decision to move away from I'm a victim, because people will then agree with you, and that's almost it can be used as a mask to hide behind. But it's a very brave decision to flip that around and then put yourself out there and say, no, I'm able and I'm capable to do everything that everybody else can, and judge me on that, not judge me on the fact that I've gone through something. And the video that Will Smith put out was the difference between fault and responsibility. It might not be your fault that something's happened, but it is your responsibility to do something about it. So people sit on this fault side of things and say, oh, well, this happened to me when I was a kid. This was the accident that happened to me. I was diagnosed with that. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. And that's what they then will hide behind, because it's a much more comfortable space to be in. But as soon as you change the mindset into, okay, cool, that's happened. Let's compartmentalize that, put that in a box, but then understand that the responsibility is 100% mine. 100% that person's. And then you think, okay, well, I'm responsible for what happens next. I'm not responsible. It's not my fault what happened before, but it is my responsibility what happens next. And then that's the mindset shift to, what do you want to get out of life? What's your why? Why are you doing these sort of things? And that can be across professional, personal, fitness, and whichever area.
Do you aspire to really have that in all aspects of your life?
For me, yeah.
Like purpose?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I don't have much free time where I just relax. And I think one of the things I was speaking about the other day on another podcast, and it's about this concept of balance and having some macro balance, micro imbalance, but just focusing on certain areas and trying to maximize them as much as possible. So, being very imbalanced in certain spaces. So to explain, if you're focused on, let's say right now, work and running is pretty much my life. That's all I've got going on. I really focus on that, but that's because I'm building up to a specific race, a specific event. So everything else is super imbalanced. I'm not seeing my friends. I'm not going out. I'm not socializing. I'm not doing many of the things that would be classified as a normal life. But then once you've achieved in a certain area, you can then change that imbalance into another space. So if you look at it from a macro perspective, you're balanced, but if you look at it from a micro perspective, you're very imbalanced. Because if you're trying to do everything to a certain level, you just become, you reach average.
Yeah.
And you sit in the average space. But you look at anybody that's succeeded, look at Elon Musk, look at Messi, look at in any area. Those guys are completely imbalanced, right? Yeah. So everyone's talking about, we've got to have balance, you've got to have balance, you've got to have balance. I totally agree. But you don't have to have balance. You've just got to understand that
it's all the imbalance.
But it's balanced against your goals. So if you want to be someone like an Elon Musk, you can't have aspirations for that, but then also be going out on a Friday night with your friends. Yeah. So it's up to you what balance looks like. But
it's the same. I totally agree. I think it's the same with fitness. We get people in the gym talking about their diet, their training, their socializing, their cakes that they have at work. Life's all about balance, isn't it? Well, if you stick with that mentality, then your life is going to be average, because the scales, one side is the average of the other side, and it's balanced. The scales is the same, it's just equal. It doesn't change. You don't tip the balance, you don't tip the weight to change yourself or to move towards any direction. You just stay. It's nice to hear someone else with that same mentality, that as long as you're happy doing what you're doing,
and that's it, 100%.
And there's purpose behind it. Yeah. And I always find though, when there's a why, I don't actually need any motivation, because I want to do that so much, and it's like it doesn't matter what that is. Like when it came to my accident, the only thing I wanted to do was walk, so I did everything in my power to make that happen, and I did. So I think, when there's a reason, there's no like, oh, you have to force yourself to do something, but you have to find the reason.
No, you do, and I think it's quite clear. It's quite clear in life. You start to look around groups of friends, and you can see who's aligned with their why, who's actually worked out why they're doing certain things, where the motivation comes from. because you think differently, you operate differently. It's the same thing as you mentioned there. People will say, how are you getting up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning every day and doing X, Y, and Z? It's easy.
Because you love it.
Yeah, because you wake up and you're like, oh, look, I say it's easy. That's it's slightly flippant, but you open your eyes and you're like, it's not easy. But like 5 minutes later, you're like, I know why I'm doing this. So you're not doing it because you're being told to, or you're making a decision to do it because of you want to try and have aspirations to compete in whatever area that it is you're competing in. Is it business? You're waking up to do more work because you want to succeed in that space. Is it because you're going for a race? You're trying to run a marathon. You want to hit a PB. Whatever that might mean to you, or it might be something bigger than that. We might start talking about sort of charity and society and wider goals. But once someone's actually identified what those are and how that, and as long as they've then mapped their actions against it, that's what you were saying a second ago. And lots of people will say A, B, and C because it's super easy to say that they want these things. So you're saying that you want to do this, but what are you actually doing? So are you
doing the opposite?
Are your actions mapping against this? So it's like, I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. Cool. Do a food diary. And then I'm sure 9 times out of 10 you look at that and you're like, you don't want to lose weight. You just want to chill. Like you want an easy life. So don't come in and say you want to lose weight when it's clear that there isn't a real desire there. It's just easy to talk about.
That particular point that you were talking about really annoys me a lot. I feel like there's particularly a lot of people very close to me in my life, like my sisters, like talk, I want to do this or I want to do that, and then it's never aligned. And I look at them and I'm like, I just want to like slap them and be like wake up, like just if you don't, particularly with my zip.
Yeah, look, I do know what you're saying. I think for a lot of people, they want one thing, but they don't know what it is to really want it. Like
or to have like hunger, like have some like
there's no fire there.
Yeah, because they haven't, and this is something I talked about with a lot of people. They haven't hit rock bottom. You know, they're a little bit overweight.
Do you know what the problem is though? Rock bottom sucks.
But that's
like you don't want to be there.
That's a dark place. Like when you talk about when you're on your marathon and you're 60 Ks in and it's just you, like you've got it. You've nobody else to help you. Like you have to get out of it. Rock bottom, like for a lot of people, that's where they go, I either sink or swim. Right now I'm at the bottom. All right, this is the lowest I've ever been. Now this is my fire, my fury. I've got no other choice but to
dig my
way out.
What is wrong with us that we need rock bottom to motivate us to do something magical with our lives?
Life is too easy.
It's human psychology. It is.
The rest of life is too easy. Like you can cruise through your schooling, you get average grades, go into university, get average grades, get a job, and great. You work 9 to 5. You like the people you work with. You hang out. You dig into the chocolates. Before you know it, you're 10 kilos overweight, but your partner's there beside you. They're also digging into the sweets. There's no motivation to lose weight. There's no motivation to get up at 4:30.
So is that the problem, that life's too easy these days?
As long as people don't complain.
But I think that I agree with what you're saying, and I think everybody wants to be successful. Everybody wants to be wealthy enough or financially free. Everybody wants to be in great shape and be able to, have longevity in this.
I think that we say that.
Exactly. But I think they want it, but they want it because it's easy to say, I want to do this, but they don't want it enough once they realize the work that goes into that. So it's easy to put people on a pedestal, and those could be people that you know or people that are just known in society. It's easy to put them on a pedestal and be like, I want to be like that person. But if you actually understood what it took for that person to get from where they started to where they are now, and it's very easy to say, they were lucky because of this, or they were lucky because of that. But most successful people have gone through a lot of shit to get to where they are. And then when people actually realize that, they're like, whoa, I don't want it that much. I don't want to put that much work in. I mean, I like the idea, but whoa, So and that's what it comes down to, and it goes back to your point of if people had it too easy. I mean, in Dubai we live a standard of life that's a lot higher than a lot of places, and it's a very comfortable life here. So do you want to go out to do brunch on a Friday, or do you actually want to get up and put the extra hours in and sit in a coffee shop and and work because you want to get further in 5 years' time? It's those small decisions. And people think that there's some big life-changing event that happens that takes you from non-successful to successful in any area, and it's not like that. It's the small decisions every day, and those just mount up and mount up and mount up. And you look back to the last 1,000 decisions that were made by that person and they're there, and the 1,000 decisions that were made by that person and they're there, but they think that there was some life-changing event or one lucky event that took that person from where they started from to that pedestal that they've put, that this person's perceived them to be on. So it's down to that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, people want it, but they also kind of want to stay home. They kind of want to stay in bed. They
Well,
kind of want to
Netflix is very luring.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
You probably don't watch Netflix.
No, look, sometimes I do. Not too much. Not
I've
too
got
much.
Sure, you never
he's got
watch
his feet up
it.
after his 50k morning
Yeah,
run.
to be honest,
What
that's
else?
actually when
Yeah.
I watch it. So Friday I did a long run, and I came back in, I was wrecked, and I just.
How long is a long run?
It was 50k.
Long.
So I did the Al Qudra loop, and then I came home. I just ordered food. I just sat on the sofa, just put the TV on. I was like, "This is cool."
So lazy, Tom.
I was like, "Now I."
So lazy.
I was
How
like,
could you waste your time?
Yeah.
I did like 3 hours. I just sat on Netflix. I was like, "This is
Yeah.
brilliant."
That's what people do every day after work. They get home, bosh, they're on the couch.
But then they wonder 5 years down the line, they're like, "Oh wow, how's that person there and
Yeah.
I'm here?" It's like, well, they've put what's the whole 10,000 hours conversation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they've been grinding it. So it's choices, and it's major choices like we spoke about earlier, from going from victim to taking control. But it's also those small choices that people are neglecting. That should I do an extra hour today at work? Should I get up and run on a Friday morning? It's all of those, and that really differentiates. In a year, it won't make much difference. Over 5 years, it really starts to make a difference. Over a lifetime, when you look back on, if you're looking back on alumni from university or school, and then you start to add up all those decisions over 20 years, it's night and day difference. And that's why people are often in one space or another.
Yeah.
But if it's just your mates over the course of 12 months, you don't see that.
Yeah. Is that what your TED Talk was about?
So the TED Talk was about the story of cancer, coming back from that, the mindset changes, seeking adventure.
Do you mind if I ask you, were you always like this before your cancer? Were you like this motivated and this? Did you have this mindset, or was that the definitive change?
So to be very honest, it was progressive. It wasn't, and I also think if I look back now, I mean, I think we change a lot over this period of our lives, and what we choose to consume, how we choose to maybe enlighten ourselves by going down a certain path and then consuming as much content along that path. I think that's changed for me quite a lot over the last few years. But that definitely changed my perception on what was actually important in my life and what wasn't. And that started the journey for me of saying, okay, what's actually important, what's not. And then I started to learn more and more about mindset, understanding. I didn't get taught this by my parents. I love my parents to bits, but their mindset is not the same as my mindset. And I have that conversation, it's an open conversation with my family. So I do believe that there's a general movement towards being more awoken around a lot of the things to do with mental capacity, how you look at life, how you deal with problems, spirituality, all these sort of things are becoming a lot more commonplace in terms of have that conversation about. That wasn't like that when I was a kid with my upbringing and my parents. So for me, it was a lot of like self-teaching, books, podcasts, and that type of thing. And to be honest, it's from what we had a chat just before we started here. It's exactly what you two are doing. It's about providing more platforms for people to learn and to educate themselves about all of the things that that your previous guests have spoken about, what we're talking about today. So for me, it was progress, and then I'd say almost like the outputs from that are business. So doing as much as I can with the company and growing that and building a team culture that I'm very proud of, because the culture we have within the business is very, very tight knit and very, very focused on the team rather than being focused on profits and driving money from that, and that's shown in the growth that we have there. And then on the fitness side and from my side, it's about pushing boundaries as much as possible, as we said earlier, about doing the ultra marathons and just trying to go further and further and see where that takes me. And then from there, it's about being able to share that message, platforms like this, speaking at schools, and that sort of thing, and just hopefully trying to get through to a few people in terms of the journey that all of us go on. I think all of us have got a message. I might be a bit more vocal about mine than others, but I've got no more of a message than the next person. It's just about understanding how best to communicate that.
And let me ask you, looking back now on the sort of the version of you that was 9, 8, 7 years ago, keeping everything quiet, would you do it the same way? If you were to sit and talk to yourself now, back then, would you keep it quiet? Would you protect people around you?
It's a good it's a good question. I haven't. I'm thinking about it now. Actually, would I do the same thing? In one way, I would say that I would. In one way that I say I wouldn't. So I'll say the way that I would is because I've got a lot more stronger mindset now than I did back then. Because you the more you put yourself through that fire, the stronger you get. And for me, that's doing the ultras and putting yourself in a very, very difficult situation over and over again. And obviously the stress of business and life, and you just become stronger, right? All of us do. So in that space, I would say yes. The reason I'm hesitant, and maybe I would do it differently, is because maybe I was more concerned previously about how people perceive me. And I think we all have insecurities that we go through over life. Now I don't have that. So now I would put myself aside and say, okay, well, if I can help somebody now, I feel that I'm able to, with that story, I'm able to help somebody in one way or another. Maybe there's someone else going through cancer. Maybe there's someone else that's been diagnosed recently, and they listen to what I've got to say, and they think, okay, well, that guy's come through it, and that's how he's thinking. Maybe there's some nuggets that they can take, and it might help them. So if there's an iota of an opportunity that might happen, then it's my responsibility to be able to share that.
And let me tell you, it does. I know, like, when I was in a hospital, I used to watch, have you ever heard of FMTV? It's Food Matters TV. It was created by these two Australian couple. It's basically Netflix, but it's motivational and health related. And I used to sit and just watch that. And the second that my mind went into a really dark place, like, I would watch those things. It was all like self-help stuff, but I love that shit.
But
and it helps.
It's like
it
when
really
you pick a book up
does.
and you think it's written for you, because it's just it
timing's
hit
right.
you right. Yeah.
So what you're saying, even you talking now, is making me want to, like, okay, I got to pull my shit together. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think you're right. It does.
Yeah,
it absolutely does. So you going out and telling your story to other people is affecting somebody in some way, even if it's just us two sitting here, but it is really. And I know that just from being on the other end of it and, like, needing that. And even now, like, when my mind goes into not a great place, same thing, like podcasts, books, happy things. Yes, like, I'm back, I'm here.
And it's so important, and that's why I think it's great that the people that are really starting to shine through in society now are people like Lewis Howes, Jay Shetty, Prince EA, Gary Vaynerchuk, all these sort of people that have got such a positive message, and that they're actually doing such good in the world. And those people, whereas society's changed, people are looking for that sort of content. Everyone's going through things, and I think it's becoming a lot more socially acceptable to understand that life can be difficult. You are going to get knocked down at some point. It's okay to understand that sometimes you're going to be weak, sometimes you're going to need some strength, sometimes you need some help from people, and it's okay to kind of drop that mask a little bit and show that and be vulnerable sometimes. It's great that there's people that are now coming to the fore of sort of popular society that are communicating that message and how to kind of move through that. So as I said, I think it's everyone's responsibility. Gone through something and has moved into a space where they're able to communicate it and able to communicate a strong message to someone else. It's their responsibility, moral responsibility, to then do that, because you never know who's listening on the other end. You never know who's going to listen to this podcast. It could be in 5 years' time and think, well, you know what? I'm actually going to do something different because I heard that piece of content. Whether it's from me, whether it's from either of you two, whether it's from anybody else. So if you have the ability to do it, I really believe that you should. So going back to answer your question, then I would say that yes, I probably would, just because of that. So not necessarily for myself, but understanding that there's a message to be sort of communicated there.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important. I mean, we spoke about it a lot. There's a lot of people with messages that it just briefly go through. It just allows people who aren't going through the struggles to reframe. Oh shit, I need to do what I need to do. But so when you came out and you told people 9 years later, what was the reaction then?
It's a funny one, because I said it on stage in the TED Talk, and that was the first time I'd said it. So even the people that I'd obviously run through the TED Talk a few times with a few people, and I took that bit out. So even my friends, even my friends that were there, that literally didn't even know what I was going to say, and they were like, "Whoa!" some of my best friends, So it was there was that, and then I had to phone my parents. So I phoned them the night before I did it, and I was like, look, I'm doing this TED Talk tomorrow, and obviously the time frame, it ended up only coming out like a few months later, but I felt that if I was going to say that to other people, I needed to tell them first. So I phoned my parents, and I explained it, and fortunately my sister's a doctor, so I phoned her first. I took her through it. I told her everything, explained the process that I've been through. She asked me a bunch of questions, and then she was like, okay, then it's 9 years, you should be fine. So I think she then spoke to my mum on the side, and she's like, look, Tom's going to phone you, but it's cool, right? Everything's cool. So by the time I then spoke to my mum, who was the main person that I was concerned about, her reaction, and she was the main person that I didn't put it out into the world because of her. She had enough to deal with. So yeah, it was a bit muted from her, to be honest, because I think like my sister told her, and then we just haven't really discussed it too much. So I didn't know. Maybe she didn't know how to process it. Yeah, and then yeah, since then it's not a common topic of conversation, but it comes up in these sort of situations. Yeah. So yeah, it's.
So Tom, I want to know what advice do you have for people out there who are kind of like, ugh. Like they have these aspirations, but again, like we were talking about, they're not actually putting any action behind it. What advice would you give them to help them find that fire and that motivation?
Sure. Look, I think there's two sides to it. It's very easy to be easy on yourself. So if everything's about you as an individual, then you're much more likely to say, give yourself a break. Okay, I don't need to do that. It's just me that I'm letting down. And you'll let yourself down quite easily and quite often. If you change your mindset in terms of, I'm doing this because of somebody else, and I'm not saying in terms of you need to have internal motivation, but let's say you feel by doing this, whatever this is to you, you're running a marathon, which might then motivate your family to change their eating habits. Whatever it is, however you need to frame it in your mind to say that, right, I need to do this because it's going to help other people. And as soon as you make that switch, then you'll start to think, I need to get up because I'm doing this for other people. It's bigger than me, and it has to be bigger than you. So whether that be, in my space now, I do things for my family and trying to make my family proud of who I am and what I do. I've got a team of people I work very closely with. I want to motivate them to be able to do more, and it's incredible to see, some of the guys in the office, like guys, some of the developers that have never had a background in any fitness, and now they're like, I've just signed up to my 10K because I watched you do what you did on the weekend. And I'm just like blown away, and these guys have never gone for a jog before.
That's
and
amazing.
Now
it's the butterfly effect.
It's small things like that, and then you start to think, and what you'll find over time, if you keep doing this, you'll keep having these individual conversations, and you start to realize, okay, hold on a second. Bit by bit, small moment by small moment, I am actually having an impact here. And that's not just me, and anybody can do this. It could be within your family, for example. If you're trying to break out of a bad cycle, you mentioned earlier about you might be in a relationship and both of you have poor eating habits and not exercising properly, and you start to think, I can change this for both of us if I actually change my mindset and my behaviors. If I just talk to my partner about it, nothing's going to happen. But if I actually change the way I am, and maybe we want to have kids and I want them to be fit, and then you start to build this whole story about how it's bigger than you, then it's quite easy to get up in the morning and do what you need to do. But if you're just all about you, and you're like, it's just about what you look like in the mirror, let's say, then it's very easy to be relaxed on yourself. But so it's about sort of getting outside of that and creating that whole backstory as to why you want to do something, whether it be in the work. We used fitness as an example here, but the same thing can happen in the workspace and changing your family's finances, or whatever it is that's bigger than just you.
That's very interesting, because there's two things you're talking about there. You're talking about doing the thing, and then you're also talking about it and sharing it and telling people about it, because there's a lot of introverts who will go out at 6 a.m. and they'll go for a run, they'll wrap it up, and they've just banged out 20K. They won't tell anybody. How often do you turn around and find this person you've been speaking to is a champion whatever, and they're just such a quiet person, they don't talk about it, that they don't have a social media following, they don't have any platforms, they're just in themselves doing it. And then you realize, whoa, this is this person. Did you know that person did the thing that I didn't know that? Did you know Tom had cancer? No, I didn't know, because he didn't talk about it for 9 years. Do you know, it's a potential that maybe the people who are doing these things aren't maximizing. Do you know?
I believe that. I think everyone's on their own journey, and everyone does things for different reasons. Those people might be motivating the people that are just closest to them that know that, but don't feel the need to put it out there in terms of creating videos around that, or putting it out on social media and the like. So people are on different journeys for different reasons. I enjoy documenting what I do because of the feedback that I get, and I know that I'll have a conversation at midnight with some guy in a different country, and this has happened countless times, and you're like, the guy will be like, I'll just watch this. Let's say one of the in the agency we do a Just Create, which is a fly on the wall vlog type documentary. We did about 20-30 episodes of it pre-summer, and there'll be all sorts of different content, and moving across into the work conversation now, different content in there about how we built the agency and the stuff we do and some meetings and this sort of thing. And I sat in bed one evening, I was just about to turn my phone off, and I saw a LinkedIn message come in. I was like, oh. So I opened it, and this guy gave me this whole life story. He'd left his job, he was traveling, and he was a bit lost, and I looked at this and I was like, oh, this guy really needs to talk. So I got into a conversation with him, and ended up, it was like 1:30 in the morning. I had shit to do the next day. And I was sat there with this guy, like just talking him through this whole thing backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. And then fast forward like 18 months, I come into contact with this guy through a completely different space work-wise. And he was like, that conversation that we had, and we really built it. He said, like, I started thinking differently. I made this decision. You start to realize that, hold on a second, by putting this out there, it's not an ego thing. It's not about you. You're putting stuff out into the world that's spreading a positive message that people are picking up and actually changing their lives in a way. And it might just be a small decision, but their path will be that a little bit more positive because you're willing to put yourself out there and be judged. And that's often why a lot of people don't do it. It's because that first video, no matter who you are, that first time you get on stage, no matter who you are, the first podcast that you guys put out and press post, it's scary because you're like, this is me, and you can judge me.
Especially when there's a scorecard on the bottom where it says
exactly
this many people liked it,
I know.
this many people saw it, which means that many people chose not to like it.
Yeah,
so,
that's it. That's it. And it's I don't judge people for not doing that. I mean, I know why I'm doing it, and so if somebody wants to say, whatever, and they have a negative perspective because you want to put this out because you want to be seen as that, cool, whatever, man. Like, I also know what the conversations I'm having with other people on the background, and I know that's super positive, and I know what my intention is. Some people, they come from a different perspective, but as long as everyone's putting a positive message out, then I don't think you can knock them.
It's very easy to knock people online, though, isn't it?
It's super easy.
Yeah.
So with the keyboard warriors, it's very easy. I mean, like, as you saw yourselves, any content creator is putting their heart and soul into the stuff. I mean, look, it's after hours. It'd be easier to be sat at home watching TV right now, right? But we're here, we're doing this, and everyone's putting their heart and soul into creating content. When you put it out there, it's raw. You're being judged, and as you said, it's very easy for someone to sit behind a keyboard and be like, oh, you're just doing this.
You suck.
What is that?
Yeah.
No, this is rubbish. And like, cool. Like, send me your podcast. Oh no, I don't do one. Send me a video. No, I've never shot one. So it's like, cool. Well, come and join us. Let's go through this process together. So it's that it is what it is. But
So what's next for you then? What you're training now for an ultra?
Yeah, so I've got about 3 weeks until it's the biggest race that I will have done. So it's 137k. Across Jebel Akhtar in Oman, so across the mountain range.
Jebel Akhtar, you going up to the top?
Yeah, you go straight over.
Running?
Straight over, yeah.
Oh my gosh, this mountain is like this.
Yeah.
Have you been there? This is pure rocks and cliffs like this. Like you're not allowed up the hill in a non-4-wheel drive. The roads are so steep.
Yeah, it's brutal. About 100. So the topography of the race at 120 kilometers is your second bag drop. So kind of rest stop. And then it goes up 1,100 meters within 3K. So basically you stop at the bottom of the valley, and you've got over a kilometer straight up, and you've got 120K in your legs. So that's going to be the point where I go, my back's against the wall. What decisions are you going to make? So that's in a weird way, I'm kind of looking forward to being there and being like, this is what all the prep's been about, the decision I make.
It's 3K this way.
So 1.5K up. Yeah. In a 3K, so it's basically it's just showing how steep that is, right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
And the road goes like this.
Yeah. So it's brutal.
And you're just with your trainers.
So I mean, in context, over the 137K, it's 7,800 meters of elevation. So bear in mind it's 1,000 meters less than Everest. that you're doing over the course of it'll be about 25 to 30 hours.
Are you doing this by yourself?
There's one other friend doing it, but it's not like we're doing it as a team. So in that sort of thing, everybody's doing it by themselves because
Unsupported?
no, it's a race. So there's water stops along the way, and it's a proper race. So it's part of a bigger. So the UTMB, the Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc, is the overarching, what do we call it? Like Ironman is for that distance of triathlon, right? So the UTMB is the world body of trail running. They have what they call, it's not a World Cup, they have it like a World Series. So the biggest races in trail running in the world, all the world's greatest runners come to Chamonix at the end of August and do the UTMB week. And there's 4 or 5 different races throughout that week. Now, to get into that competition, you have to have a certain number of points from a certain number of races. So you have to have done something of this level to even get into the ballot, to even get potentially into that race. So I'm doing this race now it'll give me enough points based on the other ones that I already have. This puts me over the edge to be able to apply. So then in December I can apply to try and get into the big race in Chamonix.
And how many people are in that big race?
It's about 3,000. But it's over.
So how many applicants do they get?
Yeah, it's oversubscribed for like years in a row. So
if you do it now this season, you'll go into the ballot for what year?
So I'll go into the ballot for this year.
Okay.
But more often than not, you normally get in on your second or third try. However, because the UTMB is a body, this is their first race. The one in Oman is their first race that they've ever done outside of Europe. So because it's being controlled by them, they're giving a lot more, quite a few benefits for people to actually, because it's obviously the rest of
from this region.
Yeah. So what's actually happening is that you get X number of points, but you also get to leapfrog 1 year in that ballot process. So I'm really hoping because of that I'll be able to get in this year. So then Chamonix in August would be racing against the best in the world.
And how long is this run going to take you time-wise?
I'm thinking 25 to 30 hours, something like that.
And you do that straight?
Yeah.
And there's no sleeping?
No sleeping, no. There's barely stopping.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's.
How are you preparing for that? 50k here?
You just don't sleep.
Yeah, just stay up all night.
I know we ran past each other one morning, but I was like 10k or something. I was wiping out.
That was down at the track, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a mixture of stuff. I work with the guys from Inner Fight, and there's a guy called Tom Walker that runs Inner Fight Endurance. He's my coach, so he does all my programming for me. But basically, it's a lot of it's during the week. It's a variety of sprint work, different tempo runs, and on the long stuff is on the weekend. So weekend before last, we did 100k straight through. And that was up in Ras Al Khaimah in Shoka. It's basically to the top of a mountain and back down, 12 kilometers. And we just did that from 6:30 in the evening through till, I think I finished about 11:30 the following late morning. So that was 17 and a half hours.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, and then 50k on the Friday, and then I've got 70k on this Friday, doing 70k on Friday. That's a race though, so it should be fun.
Where's that one? What's happening?
That's Wadi B.
Oh, you're going straight, yeah?
Yeah, the one in Hatta. So we're going to do that one. So,
wow.
Yeah. So that's
I've got nothing to say there. That's like 100 Ks. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was a long time.
Oh my God. It is a long time. Like, no, it's amazing. Like, really proud of you.
Thank you. It was the first time I'd done that distance, and it was, it was interesting. Everything was fine until I got to that one point, on that last loop. So I got to 80k, and I came into the water stop at the top just to put water in the vest again, and that was as I came in. It's weird. All sorts of strange things happen to your
hallucinations.
Yeah, you start. I mean, I wasn't at that point, but that's a common occurrence when you start to go over 100 k's. You start hallucinating rocks. You swear a rock is a dog, and it talks to you, and then you realize it's a dog. So if you listen to some of the podcasts that come out of Chamonix after that race, and I mean, because they're hammering it as well. It's the race that I'm going for is 100k. That's what I'm trying to get into. But these guys, it's not 100k to complete. It's 100k to compete. So they're hammering themselves.
Yeah.
They're doing this sort of like, not far off for the pace that you and I might jog a 20k run in. These guys are doing 100k.
It's like, do you know what I can imagine? When you watch, so as a layman runner, you watch the marathon runners, and you're like, they're sprinting.
Yeah.
they're really sprinting.
Yeah.
They're really,
I mean,
like, I've heard that on the running machines, they're at like 20.
Yeah, it's just maxing
if you do
out.
the Dubai Marathon, you run in a straight line down a road all the way for half the race, then you do a U-turn and you come back. So 2016 when I did it, like just plodding along, looking around, you know, there's my time, whatever. And then you see the group of guys coming the other way, and they are sprinting. Like there's motorbikes, you can hear the engine of the motorbikes roaring as they're just on the other side of the rail, flying past you the other way. Like they're going so fast.
The average speed, so the Haile Gebrselassie, who I'm not sure if he doesn't have the world record anymore, but he used to. Adidas runner from Ethiopia,
Possibly, Kenya, one of those.
I think, one in that area. He his average speed for his world record on the treadmill, and I think it's 16.5 or 16.8 or something like that. So I think when you've been on a treadmill, to put it into context for everybody else.
Yeah, like I walk on 6.
Yeah, so you put it up.
Mental.
Yeah, but from the story you told me earlier, it's incredible that you're doing that. So.
I know. I love my feet.
Yeah, you'll get there. You've got the goals that Tom's been setting, so you're gonna have to.
I know Tom motivated me even more.
Yeah, you're gonna have to have a quiet think now and set yourself some big targets.
Yeah.
137k up at 1.3 incline.
Do you know, this is one of the reasons why I love like meeting people like this, because every time I sit down with somebody else, I'm like, that's it. Like, so you've just given me that again.
Good. So watch this space. We'll come back in a year. We'll see where Caroline's at. Well, Tom, thanks for coming in to speak to us. Where can people follow you online and follow your journey?
Thanks a lot. Look, Instagram's the most responsive place. I'm responsive to all the messages through there. So the Instagram handle is @TomOtton, OTTON. That's it. That's where the journey is.
So see how Tom does.
Yeah.
See you on Instagram.
Bye.
Bye-bye.